I've been spending more time in my studio lately, and I'm genuinely excited to get back into making videos. I don't usually think about gear like this, but lately there are a few things that I keep reaching for, and that's usually a good sign. These aren't new or flashy, but I thought I'd share 5 pieces of tech that I'm excited to use this year. The first thing that I want to talk about is the Sony ZV-E10 Mark II. The reason why I picked this camera up was because after quite a while of searching for something that was not too similar to my other Sony cameras, but offered a bit of a difference and could still match my Sony colors and the other cameras easily in post, the Sony ZV-E10 Mark II with the kit lens had everything that I was looking for in a small, lightweight B cam that has all of the same features as some of my bigger cameras, just a little bit toned down. It uses the same sensor as the FX30, which is a great sensor. And again, it easily matches all of my other Sony cameras with S-Log3. I mainly bought it to use as a top-down camera, but lately I've found myself pulling it off of its top-down mount and using it to shoot all sorts of B-roll footage. This camera is super small and super light, and it's one of the only cameras that will just fit in my pocket without having to break it down too much. Probably the thing that stuck out to me about this camera that other cameras weren't really meeting is that it was a little bit more pricey than other budget cameras, but none of them shot S-Log3 in 10-bit. They all did some form of 8-bit, which I really just don't like editing in. I noticed that there's like a lot of banding and a lot of other weird stuff that happens when you're shooting in 8-bit, and I try to stay away from it as best as I can. It wasn't my most exciting purchase, but in the meantime, while Sony is taking their time to release a successor to the A7S III, I really wanted a third camera, and so rather than going over the top, I decided to go down low and just get something super simple and basic that gets the job done. If you've ever followed my channel, you'd know that I spent quite a while trying to figure out camera movement. It started with DIY camera sliders that I built myself, mostly as a way to save money, but I learned a lot about programming and robotics along the way. That phase was less about making perfect shots and more about understanding how motion actually worked. After that, I moved on to the Rhino system, which felt like a big step up at the time. Unfortunately, Rhino eventually went out of business and the product was kind of left in an unfinished state. The hardware itself was fine, but the software never really got to where it needed to be, and there wasn't much clarity about what the future of it looked like. That experience definitely made me more cautious about relying on these kind of systems. Now I'm finally settled on the Axibo system. The hardware is rock solid, and the software is actually pretty good. It does what I need it to do, it's easy to use, and once it's set up, it just works. That said, the company side of things feels a bit dodgy. You can still buy the system as far as I know, but software development seems to have slowed down or stopped sometime before I bought mine. There are a few issues with the software that I wish were addressed, but overall the unit works great and I'm pretty happy with it. At this point, having something reliable that I can trust to get the shot matters more to me than constant updates or new features. Another thing that I'm excited to use this year is the lighting grid up in the trusses. It took a lot of work to get it to work the way that it does now, so I'm excited to finally put it to use this year. When we moved into this space, one of the biggest things that I wanted was some kind of overhead lighting rig. In my old studio, the ceilings were really low, which meant everything had to live on stands. So every time I needed to use lights, I had to set them up and put them away afterwards. So with this space, I wanted the lights to live where they're used. The grid lets me keep lights hung, powered, and roughly aimed all the time. Most of my work now is just small adjustments, nudging a light, changing an angle, or swapping a modifier, instead of building a setup from scratch every time. Getting it to this point took a lot of trial and error. There were plenty of moments where I wasn't sure it was actually going to work the way I wanted it to, and it definitely took longer than I planned, but now that it's dialed in, it's kind of the backbone of how the studio functions. I had to use these little blocks of wood and clamps to get the pipes to stop spinning. The problem with the grid is that it's made out of steel pipe, which was really cheap to buy, but I wasn't able to screw everything into itself as tightly as I normally would. The clamps prevent the pipe from spinning in any direction, and it lets the lights hang at an angle without drooping or sagging over time. What I like about it is that it makes the space feel ready. I can walk in, turn the lights on, and start recording instead of setting up. That's a big part of why I'm excited to use it more this year. Not because it's super interesting, but because it removes friction and makes it easier to do things. Another thing that I'm excited to test out is these Hollyland microphones. This kit comes with literally everything, and for some reason, it was significantly less expensive than the DJI mic. I usually like to stick with one brand when I'm buying products, just because they tend to work better together when it's all the same brand. In this case, I've been using DJI mics for the longest time, but when the DJI Mic 3 was announced and I found out that it wasn't going to have a lav mic port, it really turned me off from it, and I started looking around for another option. I'm not sure why, but I really like a good lav mic. It's super common nowadays to hold microphones like this and just record what you're saying and call it a day. But when you're working on a short film or any type of professional set, you usually want to hide the microphone. I was happy that the DJI mic had 32-bit float, but not having a lav mic was the end of the line for me. Not being able to choose your own microphone kind of defeats the purpose of having 32-bit float anyways. They have noise cancellation, 32-bit float, and up to probably about 30 hours of battery runtime. Out of the box, it supports 2 mics, and it comes with lav mics, but you can also buy additional microphones and lavs. It has magnets, it has clips, it has cables, it has pretty much everything that you could possibly need to get going. I also really like the clip mechanism. It's very firm and it doesn't weigh down your shirt like some heavier microphone sets. This kit also came with a monitoring setup, which is really neat. I haven't got a chance to use it yet because usually I'm just recording myself. But sometimes when you're recording on a short film or a podcast or you're wanting to monitor audio, it's really cool that this headphone set can monitor left and right channels, one from each microphone. It's really neat because they just kind of hover over your ear, but they don't go in your ear, so you can still hear everything happening around you. I find that they're a little sensitive when you're monitoring, but once you get the sound into your computer, they sound great. I also bought this little mounting kit for Sony cameras that lets you plug the sound directly into the multi-interface shoe so that you can record directly onto your video track. The audio that you record isn't 32-bit float, but it's still the same quality and it sounds great. It also comes with this little charging case and this organization bag that has a whole bunch of little pockets and stuff, and I'm not even sure where everything goes in it. And lastly, I'm excited to use the Portkeys PT5 Mark III monitor that I picked up recently. Portkeys has a whole range of really solid monitors, but this one really stood out to me because they really cleaned up the design on this version. All of the edges are really smooth. They added a lot of buttons and ports, and their move over to their new upgraded software is a lot cleaner and easier to use. And now all of my monitors have the same set of features across all of them, and I would highly recommend Portkeys monitors. They're really cheap. This one was a little bit more expensive, but the PT5 Mark II is only $150, and I'm still using that today. It lives on my desk, and it's easily one of the most reliable monitors that I've ever used. I also have the Portkeys LP7, I think it's called, and it's very similar to the new PT5 Mark III, but it's just a little bit bigger, and I usually don't need a huge monitor when I'm using my full camera rig, so I keep that one on my desk so that I can have a clear view of my overhead shots. And I really like that all of these cameras have markings for social media aspect ratios on them. Anyways, that's it for this one. I'm just trying to spend more time making stuff and less time overthinking it. I've got a few more things that I want to try out in here, so we'll see where it goes. Anyways, thanks for hanging out. I'll see you in the next one.